Okay. I'll repeat that. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order, 4 p.m. I am your new chair of the Education Standing Committee, so I hope you'll bear with me as I muddle my way through. And I'd like to welcome everyone here. I guess this is the first meeting for the board to be here, and I'd really like everyone to introduce themselves. And I'll start on my right this time.
Craig Brennan, newly elected trustee. I'm here today, and let's do. Oh, maybe I should have done that. Yeah, I'll do it again.
Corey Ashram, newly elected trustee as well.
Jillian Burnett, and the newly elected trustee.
Sorry, Kat Van Haas, one of the assistant superintendents, just helping Bev with her technology, so it may not work. We'll see.
Best Indigenous education.
Don't forget your microphones, so the Zoom
Best Indigenous education, sorry.
Lisa Hoare as well, inclusive education.
Pam Spooner, Indigenous Assistant Superintendent. Cindy Reitman, Superintendent.
Diane Nygaard, Executive Assistant.
And for our board and senior admin, we'd like to hear who's here from the gallery. So if we could start at the very back.
Hi, I'm Denise Porter. I am now Vice President of the Prince George Native Community Association.
Hello, I'm Sylvia DeRocher. I'm the president of the Prince George Community Association. Nice to meet you.
Hello, I'm Sherry Pearson, Second Vice President of the PTA.
Hi, I'm Paula Bass, president QBC 742.
Beyond Bay Ndella, represent the EPAC for the school district.
Hi, I'm Monica Guerra, Principal of Curriculum Innovation.
I'm Joseph Jeffrey, District Learning Commons Teacher Librarian.
Thank you, everyone. Now I'll go to the Zoom screen, and we're pretty much all on there, except I see our chairperson of our board, Rachel Weber. Go ahead, Rachel.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rachel Weber. Just like Betty said, board chair and trustee. Thanks for having me tonight.
I don't know who else who hasn't. Oh, Bob, I didn't see you down there, Bob. Go ahead.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm Bob Thompson, the trustee from the Robson Valley. It's very, very, very snowy here today.
And I think that's everyone. So thank you, everyone, and welcome to our Education Study Committee. So I'd like to acknowledge that we are having this meeting on the traditional unceded territory of the K'ch'ne, also the McLeod Lake Indian Band for the Mackenzie Territory, and the Zimk Nation in the Robson Valley. And being as this is the Education Committee, I am reminded of a quote by Murray Sinclair that says, "Education got us into this mess, and education will get us out." So I look forward to our work together so that we can get us out of anything that's messy right now. Thank you. So the minutes of the previous meeting, there were only 3 of us that would have been at that meeting. So I'll have a mover and seconder or an adopter of the minutes, and just the 3 of us will vote.
I so move, Chair.
Thank you.
A second.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Minutes are approved from October 4th. Thank you. And we are moving an agenda item up and allow Joseph Jeffrey to make his presentation in the next item. Thank you.
Petty. My name is Joseph Jeffrey, the District Learning Commons Teacher Librarian, and I'm going to be talking today on behalf of Curriculum Innovation around what the District Learning Commons does to align with the School District 57 strategic plan. So, let's see if I can get this full screen. So hopefully you can see the District Learning Commons portal on the screen. This is our website that is the hub for everything we do. You also should have a handout that starts, handout for item 6, page 107, and starts with the important work of teacher librarians in supporting School District 57's strategic plan. That first page is an information item only around what the wider school district teacher librarian community is doing around the strategic plan. We're going to turn over to page 2, and I hope you'll follow along with me.
Sorry, Joseph, we didn't pick up the handout. Just bear with us for a sec. Thank you.
Okay, so the document that you've got in front of you is sort of a cheat sheet of what I'm going to be going over. If you want to know more about any of these things, please visit our website, dlc.sd57.dc.ca, and I hope that you'll find this very informative about what the District Learning Commons does. So first off, what is a District Learning Commons? The District Learning Commons in many other districts is called a District Resource Center. The reason we're called a District Learning Commons is, as well as our resource center piece that we have to get things out into the community, we're also a workspace for adults to come together for different professional development. It is also a way in which the district can build and collaborate together. And that's really what a learning commons piece is. And that comes together with the resource center to create our district learning commons. So I'm going to start at the top of the 4 directions with truth and reconciliation. Then I'm going to move to equity of access, then wellness, then on to learning. So as we go through this, I hope you'll follow along on your screens. You don't need to necessarily keep what I'm doing up. You can go off and explore on your own within it. You just will follow along with me at your own pace. So down here on our right, we have DLC resources to support truth and reconciliation. This is a collection of kits and other resources that teachers can use to help them when they are exploring subject matter around truth and reconciliation. So for Orange Shirt Day and Truth and Reconciliation Week, we have an entire guide with videos, links to kits, and other things that people can bring into their classrooms. We do encourage the work go on all year round, not just in that week, but we have a specific resource guide so that people can connect with the resources in a timely manner and know what they need to find on that particular week that relates very strongly to what Phyllis Webstad is talking about in her Orange Shirt story and connects them to those resources. We also have lesson plans available for Orange Shirt Day that can be accessed. We have the Orange Shirt Day playlist from National Film Board. And then we have these planning tables that have been created that connect the big ideas that support truth and reconciliation in each subject area so that people can easily come together and see that. Sorry, I think I moved through that one a bit too quick. I didn't show you it properly. So you can see here we've got K to 3 and language arts, social studies, PE and health, careers and arts. And these were put together by Noel Pepin, the district Indigenous resource teacher, at the time was district Aboriginal resource teacher, and they're all housed here at the DLC. These are also linked on the district Indigenous education website as well. We have the National Film Board, CBC Curio, and another resource called CanCore, which is explored in some of the other areas as well. And these video resources replace traditional DVDs. Many of our current laptops do not have DVD players. So we have various educational streaming services, sort of like what you're used to with your own personal Netflix subscription or whatever you've got at home. Everyone is able to access those videos simultaneously. And many of them come with lesson guides that help explain to teachers how you might use it in class, what kind of follow-up activities you can do, and so on. Then we have the kits and the other resources that we've put together. So these are material that we have created that joins different pieces together, for instance, books, video, lesson plans, everything that we think might be useful. So for instance, in this one, Indigenous Voices residential schools, we have a map of the residential schools in Canada. We have the principles of learning for First Peoples and a variety of resources that can go with it to start conversations. So for each of these kits, we bring in what we need and bring them together in one place so that a teacher is able to rent out the kit, knowing that they have what they need to get the message across to their students in as many different ways as possible. We try to be as multimodal as possible with each of our kits. In addition to this, we have a link to the Clately Deketh Dictionary by Bill Poser and the Deketh Natural Calendar Framework that was done within our district some years ago and is currently a work in progress as we refresh it and reconnect it with the Deketh Holistic Learning Model that was developed by our district. So this framework predates that Deketh Holistic Learning Model, and at the moment we're working with work that's been done out of NASDAO to take this and start moving it into language that is more akin to what the Deketh Holistic Learning Model has. So if you've not seen the Deketh Holistic Learning Model, I'm going to show you it in a second in another example. As well, we have resources that have been created by our department in coordination with others. So for instance, the Indigenous Garden project here was actually a lot of work done by Sherry Pierce, who's behind me, and she worked very hard to put this together, create all the information, and then we put it together with her to provide a hub that teachers and school administrators can use when trying to work with facilities to build a garden. We're still in the stages of working with facilities to put together the final plans, but we hope that this resource guide will help streamline a lot of the questions and not miscommunications, but the repeat communications that facilities gets where they're asked the same thing repeatedly, or they're given things that are missing a stage of, oh, you needed to talk to your school principal, or you needed to do this piece first. So we're trying to really streamline that through this guide. And this is, again, links down to e-resources, links to a partner group, Farm to Schools, and then links to a kit that we built with help from the Indigenous Education Department on foraging, because although Indigenous gardens and plants containing Indigenous gardens can work in certain areas of BC, under the traditional Clately, the tradition of Clately is not gardens in the way that we think of gardens. They would go out and forage. So this project really brought together that idea that if we're on Clately territory, we should be looking at what the Clately traditionally did. We put together a set of supplies that go out into the bush and help teachers take their students out in a low-cost way, providing them with backpacks, providing them with the tools they need to do foraging properly, as well as the land pieces to really connect to that. And so this land-based etiquette is included in every kit, as you'll see on the left-hand side, as well as a small card piece that's in every backpack, attached to every backpack to remind teachers and students what it is they should be doing when out in the land. So these are just a few of the different resources we've got. And the last one I want to show you under Truth and Reconciliation is the DeKalb Holistic Learning Model. So this is a copy of the DeKalb Holistic Learning Model. The difference is that when we were talking with Indigenous education, we realized people see this model as static. They see it as a poster all the time, which is non-movable. But each thing is not meant to connect to something else. Winter is not, and spring is not when you do land and experiential learning. But because it's presented on a poster and you can't move the poster, people were getting the wrong ideas. We built this to show each of these works independently of the other. That I can click on any of these pieces and move them around, and they are completely independent of any other part of it. So in winter, we do all of these things. In spring, we do all of these things. That these things are woven in throughout the year, and this sort of works with Indigenous Ed to help provide a very concrete way of looking at it that isn't as static as the poster that reminds everyone on the wall. So that's what we do for Truth and Reconciliation. If you want to turn over, we're going to talk about equity of access. So first of all, does anyone have any questions, by the way, before I rush on to the next stage?
Can you say the language for us?
DeKalb.
Say
DeKalb.
that.
I might be saying it wrong.
Oh, so we thought you would teach us.
Oh, my DeKalb learning is very poor, I will say. I didn't do a very good job of learning French, German, or Japanese, so I wouldn't trust my pronunciation on DeKalb. But
You could tell us.
He is right, the LH is that at the back.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh,
So that
okay.
helps.
Okay, thank you.
I do have I think, very good language teacher. That's Jen Picken. She's the one that's taught me everything I know about Clayton dialect again. So, are there any other questions on Truth and Reconciliation before I move on? No? Okay, so equity of access. I'm going to start with the fact that we as a district, Learning Commons, this resource centerpiece, we have a courier system that goes out to every school within the Prince George area. It goes to the Mackenzie area, and it goes to the Robson Valley, to both communities within the Robson Valley. And based on our rough calculations, we're transporting about $24,000 of resources every week through this courier system. And this is an enormous undertaking. We have our courier coming, bring things into us and out every day. We have subcontracted companies that deal with our outlying communities and go from everywhere from Hickson, Giscombe, Newco, the Bowl area and the Heart, College Heights, and really connecting everything together. And without this, we would not be able to get those resources to every teacher in the timely fashion that we need. The courier system is really the backbone of a lot of what we do for equity of access. But it's not everything. One thing that we have started embarking on over the last few years is what I would refer to as a library of things. And what I mean by that is there are often expensive things that one school couldn't own on their own. For instance, we have a giant floor map that is 30 feet by 15 feet. This thing is massive. If we laid it out in here, it would take up most of the room. It goes in the school gym. But what it does is this giant floor map is a map of Canada without political boundaries. It shows Canada through the lens of Indigenous people, showing their traditional territories, but also migratory patterns of animals, and allows students to see the way in which Canada looked pre-colonization, what Canada was in, and how it all connects together without those dotted lines saying, this is where BC is, this is where Alberta is, but actually seeing all those traditional territories. And that is a very powerful object, but it's also incredibly heavy and incredibly expensive. So every school owning one is not really viable. You also would have to store it. Well, we can do that. We can get it to every school so that they can use it for a week, 2 weeks, have it set up in their gym, and then move it on to the next school. We have the foraging kits that I just mentioned with 30 backpacks in it. Each backpack containing some simple supplies for going out foraging, some baggies so that you can take samples. The teacher backpack is a bit more sturdy. It's very waterproof. It can put spare changes of clothes for the kids that need it, or and it contains things like trowels and other things that can help extract in a responsible way the natural plants that you're going to be looking at, and then bring them back to the classroom. Again, this isn't something that every kid could have access to. Having a dedicated backpack that can go out with them on a field trip is a very big expense for a lot of our families, but this is something we can provide. We have jam making and canning equipment for this same reason. Now, they can't use it for any meat or fish. We just to be clear, so that health and safety, we don't allow that, but we've had people go out during foraging, get some berries, bring them back and use the jam making kit to turn that into jam that they've then given away as part of the celebration. Like, these things are all connected together. We've got beading looms, we've got robotics kits, we have our imaginative play bins for kindergarten. If you've ever talked to a kindergarten teacher, the amount of stuff you need in the kindergarten room to keep kids engaging in imaginative play and the amount of storage space they need to have all of those pieces, well, we can provide some things to lower the cost of entry for kindergarten teachers. We also have a brand new set of pride flags that can be used for displays, as well as these concussion goggles, along with lesson plans around using them for PE classes and high performance sports classes, for dance classes and other things, to see what are the effects of concussion. What does it look like when I have a repeated concussion, and why should I be trying to protect my brain in that vulnerable stage of I'm playing high performance sports, I'm doing dance, and I fall over? What is that going to mean when these kids feel like it's their world, they can't possibly take a week off? Well, this can help them see, well, this might happen if you don't take a break. So that is really powerful for getting that to understand. Our e-resources all have built-in accessibility tools. They all have a differentiation piece where it can read aloud to students, and all passwords are available for at-home use. And we've attached them at the back for you if you want to go and check out any of them. We've created a QR code generator for creating QR codes that can go on different documents, that then you can just use your phone, snap a picture, and it will take you straight to that particular thing. So if you use this QR code that's on here, it will take you to an audio file of Edie Frederick saying, Bunga, which means good morning. And this was co-developed because Indigenous education really wanted to be able to promote their language and promote Clickhead language throughout the district, but needed a safe and secure way to embed QR codes that they knew there wasn't going to be any hidden code or anything like that. We have the resources to be able to do that and provide that for them. And lastly, we created a digital toolbox of pre-approved digital tools that can be used in classrooms. We've done all the privacy work with our privacy officer, Ellen Bryden, and made sure that everything is privacy compliant. If there are forms that need to be sent home to be filled out, that they're accessible to teachers, they just need to go to the one-stop shop, go to the digital toolbox, grab the form, send it home, and that tool is ready to be used for them. So they then know how they can use it, who's paying for it, and it's quick and easy for them. Are there any questions on equity of access before I move on? I know I'm giving you a lot of information very quickly. The 4 directions are huge. Each one of these could be a presentation in their own right. Next, we're going to talk about wellness. Open Parachute is a mental health tool that we've brought into as a district. This is one that we work with Inclusive Ed on. It is a district mental health resource for both students and staff. So it contains staff modules for personal wellness around mental health, but also very strong lesson plans that mean you can give these lessons without having to be a trained clinician and be able to do mental health work with your students that is robust, is done by a professional, and is video supported with students from across the world, from across the United States. It is an American product, but the creator is from Nelson. And it really brings together and helps students understand their own mental health because it's very easy to understand. The lessons are clear, well laid out, and you can start and stop as you need to. We have as well, coming back to our website, down here, SOGI 123 resources. For those who don't know what SOGI 123 is, it is a provincial level curriculum resource that is for BC and Alberta. And it's really, SOGI stands for Sexual Orientation and Gender Identity. The reason we use SOGI rather than LGBTQ+ or anything like that is SOGI is inclusive of all, including cisgender and heterosexual. And that's really important when we're talking with students, that they all see themselves as part of this, that it isn't exclusionary, it isn't something that's different. So SOGI 123 is that resource. But when we talk about SOGI resources, we are talking way beyond just what comes out of that curriculum. And we have identified playlists through National Film Board. We have created kits that support this. We have created novel sets. We have invested in professional resources to help teachers bring this in to their classrooms. It is a part of the BC curriculum and a part of the wellness of our students to be able to see themselves reflected. The author Sherry Demerline of The Marrow Thieves said at the Ontario Library Association conference earlier this year that if you think of a library as a neighborhood, then every student should have a home, should be able to find a place of belonging where they feel comfortable. That is a book which reflects them and they feel they can live in. And that is sort of what we want to do as part of a wellness piece, is provide safe spaces for students to explore their identity in whatever way it is. And so when we're talking about these, the reason I put them under wellness is because they really connect to the student's sense of self-identity and well-being. Along those lines, we also have a Pink Shirt Day guide, which provides both kits, which are helping students understand both bullying, but also wider concepts of kindness, empathy, friendship, all of these things that help address bullying by providing students with the resources and the terminology to use. We also have a LibGuide or a library guide, which breaks down what core competencies and first speakers principles are used, along with videos that teachers can use. And then we also have our core competency support, and we also have worked very hard with national partners on a resource called the Collection Diversity Toolkit. This is from Canadian school libraries and provides us with some groundwork across Canada of what a strong library collection should look like in our schools, where students can see their identity reflected. And this is meant to be an affirming work that can bring together students from all backgrounds. And so I encourage you to check it out. That resource was co-written by myself and several teacher librarians from across Canada, from Ontario and BC. So finally, we're going to move on to learning. Are there any questions on wellness before I move on? Oh, yes.
Sure, Joseph. We're just going back to Open Parachute. I know that parents have access to Open Parachute too. Can parents access their part of it through this DLC as well?
Yes, great question.
Okay.
Yes, they can. So the Open Parachute link here will allow parents to log in as well. You should have, as a parent, received the login information from your school. You can also email Aubrey Mitchell, the Vice Principal of Inclusive Education, if you've missed that information. And that includes if you're a teacher who's missed their login information, she's your contact to getting your account back online. And so if you are a parent, if you're a teacher, that's you can log in through this one link. It should be open to everyone. Are there any other wellness questions before I move on? Okay, so finally, learning. That's one of the most obvious pieces, but I'm going to highlight all the things we do to learn towards learning, because everything I've said is also towards learning as well. It's not like this sits on its own. As you can see from the model we use for the 4 directions, it's all interconnected anyway. So much of this could sit in different places. So what I really want to highlight quickly is our lit circle menus. So these middle grade lit circle menus. So we have created these menus, 4 of which, the 4 here, survival and adventure, perseverance and adversity, immigration, refugees, citizenship, and series starters. Each one of these is a topic that is independent of a specific grade level. It will hit grade level understandings anywhere between grade 5 to grade 9, and each one of these contains resources that are at a variety of interest and reading levels between grade 5 and grade 9. The point is to differentiate and allow open access to all students through a joint curriculum. And we've themed this like a menu. So as appetizers, we have our picture books. They're how you're going to whet the appetite of students with some introductory thoughts. So we can select these different ones and add them to our appetizers and order them all at once. We then have a set of lit circles, which are literature circles, which are small group reading groups. So normally somewhere between 1 to 12 students, depending on how you're structuring. Sometimes every kid is reading a different book, sometimes up to 12 students are reading the same book. But really, you're bringing them together to have discussions in a small group environment and maybe split up into each person then goes on to a different group and talks with people who read a different book. But they're all themed together. So in this, we have the theme of, this one is immigration, refugee, and citizenship. And so we can select our names, our lit circles, and say how many we want shipped to us. And our side is the read aloud that the classroom teacher will do. And so the read aloud allows for something that is slightly higher of a reading level than the rest of the class, because the teacher's going to read it, but the interest level could be right. So we just select what we want, and then at the bottom, we add it to the order, and it will come up with a login second, asking me to log in, and then I can order them straight away. And that courier system I mentioned earlier is going to deliver them straight to the school within about a week. So it comes pre-packaged that way. We also have worked with the rest of Curriculum Innovation on assessment guides to help teachers understand what district level assessments are required of them, and also lay out with each one of these what kind of supports are needed. So if I go into this one, I'm not going to share the password on stream, although if you want to privately ask me for the password later, you can. But each one of these contains all the information that a teacher needs. These videos here are locked to our district, so if I sign in with my school district email, I can then view the video, but only if I'm a teacher. It won't work for students, so they can't see the grading and stuff like that on it. But these videos are done by our literacy teacher to help support, so that teachers can access what they need to in a timely manner without having to wait for a Prodi to roll around. Each of these pieces is then laid out here with the PowerPoints for these videos. And then teachers can then do these. There's one for each of the district assessments. So the writing snapshot, the BAS, the SNAP, and the, I'm forgetting what the last one is. It'll come to me in a second. Oh, the non-fiction reading assessment, there it is. As well, we have Hour of Code and Maker kits. These are our robotics kits I was talking about earlier that are high cost, but useful for students. And the reason I'm going to highlight Hour of Code right now is December is where Hour of Code is. It's placed in December to honor Admiral Grace Hopper's birthday. She was one of the first major female computer scientists in America. The first female computer scientist was also the first computer scientist, and that was Ada Lovelace, but that's me being nerdy. But the Hour of Code brings students together from across the world to engage in robotics and coding. And it's meant for just 1 hour in the whole year, but we really push this something in our district that is done all the time. We have lots of maker kits to support this, and you can see a few of them here. I'm going to give you a chance to explore. And if you've got any other questions, you can ask me. My email address is jjeff, that's F as in Franklin, ERY@sd57.bc.ca. And I'm absolutely open for you to email me, to go on the website, check it out, or even to book an appointment to come see the District Learning Commons and see what we do. So thank you very much for your time. Are there any last questions?
Any questions, comments? I think we all know how many resources are available at the Innovative Center, but I think you've overwhelmed us, Joseph. I'm blown away with how much there is available for our teachers and our students for learning. I think it's amazing, and I thank you very much for telling us as much as you could in this short time. But I really appreciate you coming. Does anyone else?
Chair?
Yes, Bob.
I'm just wondering if there wouldn't be a spot on this resource page for the films that anti-racism films that DSAC made last year, which are very, very well done. And it just seems like it would fit in maybe under Truth and Reconciliation, but it's just a suggestion. Really, really excellent presentation. Thank you.
If anyone has the links to those, I will absolutely put those up.
I'll
give you them.
Thank you, Lee. So thank you again, Joseph, and I appreciate your time. Well, that's a hard act to follow, Superintendent Hyphen. But if you would like to share the next item, which is the Ministry of Education and Child Care content education update. Thank you.
Included in your agenda package on page 3, I've provided you all with a copy we received from Minister Jennifer Whiteside, surrounding mostly consent education, as well as highlighting new resources that are being made available to our teachers for the use of sexual health education. The reason I'm including this in the education committee meeting is quite often when we move into conversations around health education, sexual health education, consent education, it is met with quite controversy. So I think it's important that trustees have an understanding of what is being asked of our education system. So what the direction has come, and it's stated very clear that mandatory physical health education curriculum provides opportunities for kindergartens to grade 10s to have a conversation on sexual health. And there is curriculum where the consent education could be incorporated into, and I will talk about those research packages in a minute. But there's a gap at the grade 11 and 12 ages where physical health education is not a required course, therefore the sexual health education is not required. And we are asked to include curriculum and instruction for grades 11s and 12s in the consent education. At this point, we've had conversations as the senior team in terms of how we're going to do this, because we will be asking grade 11 and 12 teachers to teach the consent education component of the sexual health resource that has been provided to us. And we need to find a way to be able to do that. We've had conversations around potentially utilizing some of the time within the career life education and the career connections courses that are mandatory at grade 11 and 12. These are courses that kids have to take where we could incorporate it. But I did want to bring this forward to trustees because, as I mentioned earlier, quite often when we're talking about sexual health curriculum, it is met with controversy. We're at the very beginning stages of planning how we will do the grade 11 and 12 this year, but more to come at this time. Included as a handout, I provided you with a copy of the Elementary Supporting Student Health Guide, and these are revised documents. There's also a secondary one, but they're quite thick, so I did not print them both off for you. I thought the elementary one would provide you with a good background. Quite often, as I mentioned, when we move into the sexual health component of our physical health education, we do have some parents who are uncomfortable with the instruction being done within our school settings. And this is something that we face annually in many classrooms across our district. Physical health education, in particular the sexual health curriculum component of it, is the only curriculum where parents can opt to have an alternate method delivery of instruction, and that is in policy. So our practice is when we move into having topics and instruction around these controversial, for some families, controversial topics, information is sent home to parents that this curriculum is going to be covered, and if parents choose to not have the teacher teach that, they can have the conversation with the teacher. The piece that we're still really working on is the teacher is still required to report out on that curriculum. So there's a conversation that has to take place between the parent and the teacher in terms of how is that covered and did the child meet those learning standards, because it is required curriculum in British Columbia. So again, with the revised documents, the directive of consent education, and consent education has been incorporated into the resource packages, and you can see them, they're in there for you. I just wanted to give trustees an opportunity to have this information before we start rolling it out and you start receiving emails for potential questions that come. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so parents always have a choice to opt out, is that right? For any part of anything that covers sexual orientation or anything, parents will always have an option, just to make that clear that they always do.
Yes, under the policy and the ministry policy, sexual health is the only curriculum where parents can say it's not opting out. It's called an alternate delivery of instruction. So kids are still required to learn that curriculum, but parents can choose to say, I'm going to do it at home my way.
Any questions from Zoom? No? I don't see any hands.
Yes,
Yes. Follow up, yes.
How is this going to be communicated to make sure that all teachers realize this? Because it has come to my awareness that there is some practicing teachers that don't, when a parent approaches and says, I would like my child not to learn this, or I'd like to take this at home, you know, and cover this in family, because of cultural, religious, whatever, you shouldn't even have to explain, that they're getting pushed back, that they don't have a choice, that it's mandatory, and they're being told. So I don't think that message of that they're able to have an alternate one is being fully communicated across the board. And so, you know, and this is not just one case, there's multiple cases of this, that, and it's, so that's my concern, is that I like that it's there, and I believe that, you know, parents should have that right. My concern is that it's not across the board communicated with all staff. So just, I'm already hearing about some difficulties in that, and parents even communicate and say, and then they get told, no, this is what we're teaching, and, you know, you should, and you need to learn this. So that's my only concern, is that in the future, that it's communicated effectively to all staff and made very clear that the parents do have that final say.
Yes.
I think there's an opportunity now that we have the revised consent education that will be appropriate to revise our practices. I think some of the challenges we face when parents say, no, I want to do this curriculum at home, it's what happens to that child when the teacher's teaching it to the rest of the class. And quite often parents will request additional work or an alternate activity, and the teacher's like, this is what I'm teaching at this time. And it's a challenge we face when we have parents saying, I want to teach this at home, and the teacher is saying, well, I need to teach the rest of the class. And perhaps that there is some challenge around what happens to that child, because the child can't be left on their own during that instructional time. The teacher is responsible for that child during that instructional time. So how do we schedule that out? And I think that there is some challenge that has to be worked out at the school level. But we will certainly, when we reintroduce the consent education, remind all schools of that policy and the form that has been created at the district that lives in our school operations handbook for people to access. So it's all that's there, and it also outlines all of the learning standards that are covered by grade for the sexual health component of the physical health education. So it's just an opportunity for us to refresh that, I guess.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Rachel has a
Yes,
hand up.
Rachel.
Thank you. Just put my hand down here. I just wanted to comment on that part where Cindy was saying, like, the conflict of where do you put the child. I can let you know, as a mother, I pulled my children during this training when they were younger, and every year I pulled them because I believe that this should be taught at home, and like all the political stuff should be kept out of schools. It would make school life so much easier. But I can tell you, my children went to the principal's office and read a book, or my children went to the library and read a book. And there was one day where the teacher didn't let them leave, and I had to come and physically pick them up. And then from that day forward, I met that teacher at the school every day and made sure that my children were removed from that class because my consent wasn't being respected. So I think we really need to figure out a safe place for these kids to go when parents are feeling like this, because the education system doesn't have full and total control of these children. The parents do. Thank you.
Any other comments? Hearing none. Thank you, Superintendent. We'll look for further updates as we move along. So that the next item is a strategic plan continuous improvement cycle update.
Thank you. I'm just going to do screen share. Perfect.
The toolbars, Dr.
You. All right, thank you very much. So as part of our strategic plan continuous improvement cycle, we are required as a district to do community engagement, to gather that information that we receive, to reflect on it, to make changes, and to go back out after there's been a period of time to review again. Throughout the month of November, we embarked on our first engagement, which was through a thought exchange around, the question was, what priority have you seen most growth in school district 57? Put together a presentation for you so you can see the information that we gathered, as well as share with you the next steps in terms of the implementation plan. So there we go. We sent out a question, and it was from your perspective, in what area or areas has school district 57 shown the most growth? What have you noticed? And our areas are learning, equity of access, truth and reconciliation, and wellness. You can see that survey ran from October 25th to November the 11th. Participants, we had 970 people participate in this particular engagement session. We received almost 400 ideas and 13,000 ratings, meaning that there was 33 ratings for each thought. So the ratings are an opportunity for you to agree with somebody else's idea or not. Or what tends to happen is one idea connects to a new idea, which connects to a new idea. So the whole concept around thought exchange is to literally exchange thoughts and build off of those together. Who participated? We ask our participants to identify how they most connect to our school district. And you can see our largest group that participates is our parent, caregiver, and guardians, followed by our teachers. We still continue to send this out to everybody to hear from interested community members, and I had conversation with DSAC this week around their low participation in some of the things we do and how can we do a better job of engaging them in our questions. Although this isn't a fulsome and completely intense collection of information from the community, it's a place for us to start as we move in to build the rest of our engagement sessions throughout the year. We ask people to identify where they live. And the feedback I received from the previous board was to break apart. We used to say Greater Prince George area, but really wanted us to break apart who considers themselves rural Prince George, which could be, Hickson, Giscombe, Newco Lake, Beaverley, Buckhorn, Blackburn, people who identify as living in the rural parts of the community, and those who identify as living in our urban Prince George area. And kudos to Mackenzie, because their engagement in the work that we're doing has increased so much over the past year. So it's really happy to see 40 participants from the community of Mackenzie, but I know many more people live there, so I'll be looking for more trustee lever. I self-identify as having Indigenous ancestry. Part of our work is always to look at how we capture the voice of First Nations and Indigenous and the Indigenous community. We have a 30% Indigenous population within school district 57, yet we have not managed to get 30% participation. And that is something we continue to work on. And I've been thinking a lot about the survey that we do specifically for our Indigenous community, and I'm wondering if there's an opportunity to connect some of this work into that as well, to capture more of a voice. And maybe the presentation isn't working and we need to make some adjustments to capture more Indigenous voices. So one of the beautiful things about thought exchange is it creates word clouds for us, which I love these visuals and I love these word clouds because it really draws out the words. So these are the words that were typed the most in all of the exchanges. And I will say, absolutely, truth and reconciliation has been acknowledged as the district's focus. for the past year. There is no question there at all. Indigenous, important, focus on history, and you can see the other words in there, but truth and reconciliation was acknowledged as the district's focus over the past year, the most and most acknowledged. This tool, this particular option in thought exchange allows us to look at sort of competing views and where community sits with some of those. So for example, I talked about the overwhelming acknowledgement of truth and reconciliation as being our focus. Side A says you're giving too much attention to truth and reconciliation, let the kids learn. They need to learn school, let them learn that in history class or social studies. Schools need to stick with learning as the first and last priority. If you look at side B, their statements are a little bit different and competing. I really like the school and the teachers work with you and your children. They're there to help. I feel supported in learning and growth with my child. This is super important because I feel heard. I feel the school truly wants what's best for my child and are willing to work with me to achieve this. Another one, as a senior, I'm glad that they're also including Indigenous names on schools. Hopefully more correspondence could make notation that we are on, and I'm sorry, I got that off. It didn't print. We are on a journey. We are on the truth and reconciliation journey. And where it's common, so where it's high common, learning seems to be the last priority. A priority still that comes across as a lesser. Learning should be the biggest priority, done in ways that respect the other priorities. I want my child to learn the basic education skills. Another one that gives example, growth and learning, talks about here, truth and reconciliation is our moral obligation to face how the past is affecting families. So you can see side A, it's important on its own because of the sense that our district had a problem in this area. So acknowledging that it was identified and we needed to do this work. Side B, too much focus on truth and reconciliation, not enough about learning. It's not as important as learning the basics. And then you can see what was common high in the middle, where the two opposing sides came together with common in the middle. It doesn't mean we forget truth and reconciliation. Let's focus on some skills for our kids to graduate. And that's something that we continue to hear when we do the engagements. Out of the 400 thoughts that were shared, what I learned that there's an acknowledgement that we have had a focus on truth and reconciliation. The sentiments of appreciation for this have increased immensely from where they were a year ago. The sentiments of not seeing the value has decreased. What I've learned is there is a lack of understanding between the difference of equity and equality. Many of the comments and questions that we heard would talk about equality and not understanding that equality isn't equity and confusing those two things. I also noticed that there's not a lot of knowledge out there in terms of what we're doing to support wellness and learning. People just don't know. And it has me thinking in my brain, we talk a lot about this, what is the narrative in our district and in our schools? So what do we do with this information? Some of our next steps in this continuous improvement cycle that we need to go through, we need to review our data in focus group conversations in January. We have received our preliminary graduation rates. Pam and I are just kind of diving through them right now to disaggregate that data a little bit more. And we've received the summary data from the student learning survey last year. What I think we need to do as a team, and I talk about this, we need to build a communication plan, and I shared this with our senior team this morning, to share the work in the areas of wellness, equity, and learning. We've done a really good job through video, through story, through articles, through news coverage on the work we're doing in truth and reconciliation, and we need to continue to do that because it's important work. Where we haven't talked a lot about is wellness. When I look at Joseph's presentation today and I look at all those resources we have in that incredible open parachute access to parents and families and community, how do people know that? We have mental health ambassadors in all of our schools and our secondary schools. But the public doesn't know that because we're not sharing that information. And we need to work on doing that. We need to share this out. And And the same goes for equity. When we talk about equity, what does that really mean? What does that really look like? And where are examples of equity within our school district? We saw some examples of equity through the resources that we provide our educators, but what's happening in our classrooms? And the same is for learning. You know, I've had the opportunity and the privilege to teach 1 day a week in our mostly elementary schools and primary, and I'm not a primary teacher, so I've had to do some tremendous amount of learning. The amount of literacy instruction that I've been able to witness and see in a variety of ways with a variety of resources. I am learning all kinds of different resources. You fly, we said, I'm like something about flying, and we studied you fly and the Haggerty and you know, all kinds of different resources and programs that teachers are using in their classrooms. We don't do a good job of sharing that story, and that's something that I think we need to do as we move forward into the next year. So where we go from here, in November, our data didn't come to us. Our 2021-22 data did not come to us until last Wednesday. So what I would typically share in the month of November, I've been unable to do, and it's not a good time to do it now, right before Christmas in December. So we will do that in January. In January, there will be a board workshop where we review our progress to date. So we look at our deeper dive of the data, we look at the information that we've collected, we look at our progress. There will be engagement focus groups with our stakeholders and rights holders as well to review our progress and looking at our data. And we make adjustments. March and April is where we begin the budget consultation to set those priorities in alignment with the strategic plan. So we take that information that we've gathered and we think about how it connects to budget in the budget work that we do and our staffing plans. Once more in May, we engage with stakeholders and rights holders to review more updated data that we have and suggested updates for the next school year. And in June, the budget is approved, as well as the framework report for enhancing student learning. And the revisions to the strategic implementation plan are presented to the board in June, based on all of the feedback that we received throughout the year. This is a process that we started last year. And for those who were able to participate in these engagement sessions, they were wholesome, and we learned a lot. And the markups and feedback are presented in June to the board, so public can see and stakeholders and rights holders can see where their input has impacted our implementation plan, as well as when we're making those budget decisions. So that is our first update in terms of our strategic implementation plan, and I am open to questions.
Thank you, Superintendent. Questions, comments? See none, Superintendent, you did well. We've got all the information we need for right now. So thank you so much. And that is the end of our agenda, people. So we'll be able to let you go early. And if I could have a motion for adjournment. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Erica. Thank you. Meeting adjourned. That's very short. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.